All right, we're going to get started here. And welcome to our first webinar for South Asian Success, Understanding Global Customer Personas and How Best to Support Them. We have two panelists today, Raman Bindra and Rohan Sheth, who are both members of our South Asian Success Steering Committee and who volunteer their time to make this group possible. Raman and Rohan, do you want to take a moment and just introduce yourselves?
Yeah, hi. Thank you so much for the warm introduction, Parul. My name is Raman Bendra, and I've been associated with the customer success industry for close to a decade now. And I've personally seen this industry evolve a lot from just being, a sideline customer support or a glorified customer support function to a mainstream, growth evolving function in an organization. I believe in data-centric approaches towards handling customers and a strong believer in focusing on customer advocacy with our customers. At present, I'm working in heading customer success for Indian team at Compliance Quest, and really glad to be a part of this webinar today.
Hey, thanks so much, Parul, for the introduction. And hey, everyone. My name is Rohan Seth. I'm based out of Toronto, and I have 15 plus years of experience in customer-centric roles, and it's been spread across different industries, hospitality, services, and for the last 5 years with a product company. And I've been lucky enough or fortunate enough to have had interactions across my professional career, interacting with customers and customer stakeholders from across the globe, uh, adding to varying perspectives and cultural and geographical differences that they bring about, and which is why I'm excited to speak today. Drawing from some of those experiences.
Thank you both. And I didn't introduce myself, which I should have done. So Parul Bhandari, founder of South Asian Success. And I've been working customer facing for about 20 plus years in different capacities. So started out my career in consulting, transitioned for a short time in HR, and then I came back to consulting. And the company I was working at actually became a SaaS startup. So I got the awesome opportunity to start a CS team from the ground up. And what I love about that story is that it was a global CS team. And why it's relevant today is that I learned so much from those first customers, those global engagements. And we actually owned onboarding and rollout, and we would do phased rollouts all across the globe. And it was really, really a great time to just learn about a little bit about global mindset. But I'm more interested to hear from Raman and Rohan because I think you all have more current experience to me. Just a little bit of quick logistics for this recording. We are South Asian Success, and our mission is to aim to create a collaborative space where customer experience and customer success professionals who identify as South Asian can celebrate our shared culture, learn and grow together, and drive diversity in thought and practice in our workplaces. And a few logistics for the session. We will be using our discussion area for any Q&A. So please do keep your microphone muted if you don't mind. And reminder that you'll be recorded and published on YouTube. And that's about it. Actually, that's all the logistics. So we'll jump right in and review a little bit more about our esteemed panelists here. As you both mentioned kind of your careers and your career history. So we picked on Raman and Rohan to lead this session because we know that global customer success varies and that CSMs in different countries, face different challenges. And where do those challenges begin, right? They're partially where they're working internally, and they're partially based on what those customer needs are. So our goal and our agenda today is really to talk about in our discussion, how do customers vary across the globe? How can we better support them? This is going to be a panel style, so we're not going to really use the slides today. But I do want to let everyone know, just a little disclaimer, we are going to present some generalizations, some expert opinions, but that's in order to provide some broad context. But there may be some generalization across a region, and we do not, we will not be speaking for every single region in the globe, right? in doing this session. Okay, so I'm going to jump off of our slides here, and I'm going to share with you all some questions, Raman and Rohan, and I want to just kind of get started with a broad assessment of customer mindset. Are there variations in customer mindset from region to region? If we break it down into like sort of North America, Europe, and Asia as three broad regions, and feel free to go and expand beyond those as well, what are some sort of key mindset variations that may exist, if they exist?
Yeah, and I think I'll take that first. And Parul, I think in line with what you just said, we're probably generalizing here and not really speaking to every single customer in every region. But North America, from what I've experienced, usually have a liking to stick by the book, wanting to do things the way they have been communicated, the way the expectations have been laid out. And so it's important in that sense for the customer success teams to make sure that the expectations are set right, right at the beginning and then throughout, to make sure that you're not upsetting a customer because you have set those expectations, you have committed to some things, and you want to stick to those and get along, making sure that you are by that by the book. And so that's the typical mindset there. It has varied. It's still a little sometimes a mix of formal and informal there. So you do have the ability to have a bit more outside of professional conversations, a bit more around, of the, actual product conversations. But with customers in Europe, I think our expectations have been, or our experience has been actually to, stick to what you have said. It's a more formal approach. You're presenting about what you're talking about is about your product, about your services, and very little scope for you to actually go outside of that.
Great. I'll also add on from an Asian perspective and the Indian perspective in our experiences with the companies that we have been a part of. Now, when we talk about Indian customers in particular, I would not say that the expectation setting is not bad. We are working on ensuring that the day when the customer is handed over to the customer success team, all the expectations are set really well with the Indian customers. But with the customers, in specifically Indian region, one thing is that India is a big country, and and because it's a big country, at every I would say 100 kilometers, a language changes, the culture changes, so does the mindset. And there are so many things that we need to take care of, which means that a person sitting in Delhi cannot generalize a person who is sitting in Bangalore, Hyderabad, Mumbai, or even northeastern side of the country, which means that we have to be really, really aware of the cultural linguistics while we are setting the expectations with the customer in India. And while that happens in India, the customers are very much, I would say, result savvy. When I say result savvy, they definitely look for the outputs, at a faster pace, which means that if certain things are falling off the chart, they would definitely, prefer or start giving you a call to ensure that are things really in place. So that is something that sometimes you can, face with the customer. Again, as everyone has said it, that we are not generalizing all the customers by passing this statement. But this is something that we have faced in our recent experiences, because at the end of the day, they are also answerable to their own, management. Due to which, sometimes when the management is putting the pressure is passed on to the CSM from the customer by saying that, where are we, how are things going on. So these are certain aspects that we really need to take care of when we are dealing with Indian customers. And if I talk about from the APAC perspective, there I would be, the customers are a bit calmer. They would ensure that, they were reaching out to you via emails or trying to understand things from a low profile perspective. When I say low profile, which is not creating a panic around, but it's more of, the trust factor is there. We just want to be aware of how are we progressing. So these are certain things and certain aspects that we have seen in such kind of scenarios with Indian in particular and Asia in particular from a customer segment base.
Yeah, that sounds great. I mean, thanks for sharing that. And I think I would definitely agree. As you guys were talking, I was thinking about my my when we would launch these global deployments. I think it was always interesting to me where the company was headquartered would sort of dictate the terms, and that team also tended to be the most like vocal team of all. So that for us was often a North America led, and so that created some of the generalizations. I'm curious though, because Raman, you hit on this too a little bit. What are the how do these varying customer personas want to be communicated to? What are the things that you've kind of picked up over time, Raman and Rohan, you as well?
So, from communication perspective, definitely in my experience, and I would say in the last 3 years, what I have started to observe is that a lot of importance is going to be or is given to WhatsApp as a communication platform from a wherein the customer can reach out to you. Earlier, we used to focus more towards the VoIP services or Skype or Slack or other or all the other mediums which were more professional in nature that would be provided from the organizations. But these days, I don't know if it is more of sharing the results faster or expecting that if we reach out to you on your personal phones, then you might get to hear answers in a much better way or in a more personalized way. That's where customers do reach out to you on your personal cell phone numbers, and these are shared. I have personally seen some companies sharing the personal cell numbers to the customers, and even the customers using WhatsApp as a medium to talk to the end customer success manager, where they are also, and I personally have seen this, wherein they have shared meeting agenda pointers on WhatsApp. And again, not kind of making a mockery of it, but this is something that I have recently started to see, that people are sharing MOMs and agenda pointers that were discussed on a call, which and used WhatsApp as a platform to share those minutes of the meeting. So these kind of things do happen in the customers in India that I have seen. But other than that, I guess the next thing is the cell phone. As I mentioned, people do reach out to you on your numbers. So when you are setting and this is one advice that I give to all of my CSMs now, that when you are getting in touch with your customers, the very first thing is the expectation setting. Even if they are having your personal details to reach out to you, try to create a time and make them aware of your working hours, so that they cannot kind of try to reach out to you. Even if it's a big problem, then definitely we are there to cater to you. But then the customer should be aware of the official working hours, wherein they can reach out to you via the information provided by the organization.
Great. Yeah, that's very helpful. And I'm just surprised. I've never heard of that of use of mobile device for agenda sharing and meeting notes, but I mean, I, like many people, am on my phone most of the day. So I think that I can see the value in that. That is definitely interesting learning.
Mhm.
Rohan, how about your experience?
Yeah, so I think I can relate to a bit of what Raman said because of our customer success team having presence in India and parts of APAC as well. And so I've heard this from them, where they have done a lot of communication engagement over WhatsApp. But on the other side, on my experience and the team on the North American side, it's usually the preferred channel is email, and outside of emails, tools like Slack have been used a fair bit. So there are instances where you have a dedicated Slack channel, or even Teams, for example. And so if you're a Outlook, you have Office 365. You usually rely on Teams for a lot of these conversations happening over calls or chats on Teams. But again, not really agenda or minutes of the meeting. None of that usually happens on that's usually reserved for emails and invites. It's stuck to that. The chats on Slack, Teams is usually where you're trying to get some information or share some communication or updates with the customer. And again, I think this is sort of moving towards that direction because of points that I think Raman and you brought out, that people are mostly on mobile today, and
Right.
these apps make it easier for customer and the customer success teams to actually stay in contact. It makes it a lot faster for them because you have tons of emails to actually sieve through before you can actually get to that one piece of information you're looking for. and so it does make it a lot faster and a lot better. And so Slack and Teams and some of these are used here on North America. With some of our European customers, however, we've not seen a whole lot of Slack or Teams or any of that. It's mostly emails, and even the call frequency usually drops post the initial onboarding. They are showing up and you are interacting a lot more during the initial onboarding because you're setting things up. But post that, I think if things are running smoothly, they'd like to limit the number of conversations and like to interact through emails as much as possible. It's possible we don't have a localized person in the European region, and so it's possible that language is one of the reasons, probably because we don't have in our team today customer success folks who speak Spanish or Portuguese or Italian or multiple languages that are spoken across Europe. So that could be one of the reasons, but email I think is a preferred channel.
Sorry, I couldn't get off mute. That is great insight. And what you just said about Europe, it also reminded me of a webinar I listened to really recently, is actually like the venture capital space. And, they were talking about that exact thing, that a lot of European customers, the European market is not non-homogenous. So you have various language and culture, and where people feel comfortable may not be the same as another country. So a lot of those sort of norms can be felt, through that experience. And you can also, they say, if you master that region, you can also you've mastered several different cultures and languages, and it's actually a great like precursor to doing other global expansion. So that was a really interesting point. Okay, yeah, I want to ask you guys. So we touched on some of this stuff, and Raman, thanks for I think sharing some expectation setting too. In the vein of expectation setting, like I think customers have expectations, right? I think they are wanting us to meet them where they're at a little bit. So what are some things that you might consider on how you support them that might vary for different customers in different regions? So things that a company might consider doing on top of, say, here's my normal offerings, here's some things I could do to help meet a customer where they are, either in, language or time zone or other things like that.
So, in my experience, what I've seen is definitely, considering the customer where they are in their customer life cycle in an organization, that is really important to decide the meeting or the communication aspect with the customer. Now, coming to the point of the face-to-face meetings that we try to do with the customers. Now, in specifically, if I talk about the Indian region, here the customers really appreciate in-person meetings, because the feeling here is that while they are in those in-person meetings, they could be, they could talk out freely about, the product, the service, and also they get that special feeling that definitely the organization understands and values that relationship. That is the reason they are traveling to meet them and take that feedback in person and try to or even understand how the expectation is in terms of product, service, and even take their suggestions on improvement. And that really matters a lot, because while we try to do, it's easy to do virtual calls with the customers, but the freedom that they get to express themselves when they are sitting next to you is at a whole different level as compared to a virtual call. Now, when I say, this is just one pro that we have, and I would not try to say that virtual calls are not impactful, but this is something that, in Indian customers definitely, kind of are satisfied if we are doing this at purpose with them. Now, with the other customers, in other regions, what I've seen, if I talk about the European customers, they're definitely, the virtual calls definitely help. But while we do the virtual calls, as Rohan did mention about this in his uh, when he was speaking about it, I'm sorry, was that the language barrier is always there, and they are thinking twice or multiple times while they're trying to express themselves or putting out information to the to the CSMs or even the organization. So that's where we have to be very much mindful, because the customer is already taking that or is thinking multiple times about what to say, how to express it, what smaller things we do personally, even from a point of pronouncing the name of the customer to make them feel comfortable. Say, for example, if someone's name is, a bit difficult to even pronounce, we try to double sure with the customer or assure the customer, hey, this is how we pronounce your name. This is the slightest thing of making the customer feel comfortable that, hey, we care about you. We care about your diversity. We care about how your name has to be said. Because this is something that I have personally faced as well in certain scenarios wherein you are in bigger meetings and people from other region might give you might start pronouncing your names weirdly, or even might not even double check with you how does your name pronounce, or even might give you a nickname which you might not be okay with or comfortable with, right? Though it's a very small nuance, but has a very deep impact on the mindset of the customers, right? So this is some things that we do from our side to ensure we make the customers feel comfortable from our side.
Yeah, that's a good one. And I will tell you, my name has been mispronounced my whole life. So I will completely relate to that one. Great. That's a great insight. Yeah, Rohan, how about yourself?
Yeah, I think in general, across North America and Europe, what we've experienced is your virtual connects are usually acceptable and they're okay. These, of course, differ again, like I think what Raman indicated, depending on the organization that you're dealing with, right? So there are cases where you are working closely with enterprise accounts that have larger deployments and may require a lot more effort and time that you spend. And so in some of these cases, it might make sense to have a mix of both in-person and virtual connects to make sure that you're able to stick to the timelines and deliver the first time value as quickly as possible. And so there are nuances or variations to this, but in general, I think the virtual connect to support them is usually acceptable and works perfectly fine. um, Again, if you have people in the respective time zones available, it works better because you of course can reduce the time to first response, and then also the following clarifications or any response updates that you want to share. So it does help if you have a global team across different zones and supporting customers based on that. Just makes it that much more faster or easier. And I'll also agree upon the name bit with what Raman said, because I think you do encounter different people in different zones and different geographical locations with names that are sometimes not something that you're used to or heard of. And so you're absolutely right. It's a best practice to actually double check, triple check how they would like to be called, and what the preferred name is, just to make sure that you're not offending somebody at the beginning of your relationship. And that's absolutely something people take personally too. So yeah.
I think in any language, people take that personally. I'm just going to add a couple of points from my experience as you all were talking. It made me think of some other ways. Like, I think I fully agree with you, Rohan, on the time zones. Like, in here in North America, we often would employ offshore resources in our support teams to
Yeah.
accommodate overnight time zones. And I think that really does pay off. You might not see as much activity in every time zone, but it does pay when a customer needs something quickly. And language has always been a challenge, and I led support teams myself. So language, you can't hire somebody that knows 20 languages if your platform is in 20 languages. But what you can do is you can try to do creative techniques. Like, I remember we would get a support ticket in a language. We would kind of use like a translate tool, and we would put the response in our language and back in their language. So some way, some shape, it was the correct response, but it wasn't always, hey, we know this language and we can verify it. Sometimes we got some laughs, some chuckles from people because they said, well, that's not really how you say that. And we were just relying on translate tools, but I think they liked the effort that we put in. And, it's not easy to do multiple platform languages, but if you can, that's an awesome investment that many platforms do choose to make. It does make it challenging if your input language is in another language too, right? Then your CS team might have to not understand the trends in the fullest way. But there's one other one that was kind of interesting to me is brand awareness. So I noticed it was some Asian countries they prefer certain vendors. And so the use of like a third party or a reseller, it comes into play. So you might create a deal flow through another party, which was kind of interesting to me. That's just kind of something I noticed in a few countries, but not an overwhelming thing. So, but I thank you guys for sharing this. And Raman, you shared an example when we chatted, which was I thought really cool, which was meeting customers where they needed, even in a segment standpoint. Like they might be a lower touch customer. They don't know that, right? They're just not a high paying segment. But you would find ways to give them higher support if needed at surge periods. Could you talk a little bit about that experience?
Sure. So, what we prefer doing in our organizations definitely these days is segment our customers: enterprise, mid touch, and low touch, or tech touch. Now, if certain customers from that particular, though that particular definition stays with us, not with the customer, but we while we are onboarding the customers, we would ensure that we share it with the customer depending on the product in which we dealt with earlier, would be that if there was a festive time or any specific time of the month where they expected certain surge in terms of usage of the product, wherein more and more people can use the application, and they do not want a downtime at all because it will have an impact on their business, from a P0 perspective or the critical perspective, which can also have an impact on the revenue. That's something that we would speak out loud in the very first call, so that the customers could take a minimum a week or 10 days to inform us in advance, so that while irrespective of the nature of the customer, we from customer success can do this one time for this customer to be present. Someone either would be from support or product to ensure that we are having an uptime at that very search specific timing of the customer that they mentioned to us, and ensure that they get the best out of the service in terms of product usage, and also grow with it. So these are certain specific things that customers in our region definitely appreciate, and at the end of the day, you never know that that appreciation can bring a lot of growth to you from an organization perspective.
Yeah, once they're a higher revenue customer, they're gonna really
Exactly.
appreciate that, right? Okay, so let's talk back to time zones. I know time zones was a discussion we talked about, but what about working hours? Raman, you alluded to if you're giving someone your personal information, you should tell them, here's my working hours, set expectations. How do you feel like the regions vary with working hours? Does everybody stick to working hours very tightly in their region? Is there variation? What have you seen? Just kind of curious, what is your experience with that?
Now, one major thing that would act as a differentiator is the type of the customer and the type of the project in which the customer is involved. And second part to this is what level of impact does that project have on the customer's goals as well as the organizational goals. Now, if that project is pretty much critical in nature, that is having a direct impact on the revenue perspective, then definitely, even after mentioning certain working hours to the customer, if there is a situation wherein your presence is required or some solutioning is required to ensure the customer is out of that problem, then definitely we have to be present to hear the customer out. Now, the similar way, if the customer is a mid-market customer, which is a lesser revenue, and the project might not be that I would say critical in nature, but still the project is there. At that point of time, we can still, or the customer still understands. If you say that, hey, let's do this first thing in the morning tomorrow, the customer would respect that. But on the other side, if I go back to the very first case that I was talking about, that's where I have personally observed that escalations can happen. It can go pretty badly, for you guys, if when the customer needed you and he believes that if this problem is not solved at that very point of time, it can have a bigger impact on their revenue and they would be answerable to their management. So irrespective, even if it is 10 p.m. at night, 11 p.m. at night, and if there is a problem, if the customer will call you and try to get answers towards his problem, or try to get solution so that they are over it. And this is something that I've seen with specifically more of enterprise customers who are having some complex projects, which has a major impact on their business goals.
Yeah, I hear that. And I think there's like your company sort of has to set the tone for your employees. So if
Right.
you, what I mean by that is not the customer company, your company where you are actually working has to set the tone of expectation. So I definitely agree. Like we had launch periods where we would be launching software over the weekend and everyone had to be on call. We would just do shifts. We would try to make it as least disruptive to your work life as possible, but everyone had to be on call, right, during these periods. So I agree. And if you think about it as as being on the business side, we often kind of take for granted, right, that we always work like kind of a more strict schedule. But a lot of the development teams and stuff would have to be on call, right? So part of your organization's already there. So I think if it comes from the top down and you're really setting those expectations, it can be done in a way that people understand like we're not encroaching on your work life, but there are going to be surge periods where we're going to need everyone to step in. um, okay, so Rohan, what about you? Any insights on like what is working, like how is working hours? How do you feel they are adhered to, not adhered to across the regions?
Yeah. Adding to what both of you said, I think it depends a lot on the type of organization, what you're catering to, the industry, the sort of projects that you pick up, right? And so, even in addition to that, like you just mentioned, different functions could also have different, timings or work hours based on their deliverables, right? And so, in North America, it's usually flexible, and so whilst there's expectations on what needs to be delivered, it's as long as the work is managed well, it's flexible, it's fluid. So if I have some commitments that I want to cater to personally on in the evenings, I could actually start my day earlier, wrap up my work earlier, and get done with it. And vice versa, right? If somebody has to adjust the timings and move it a little later in the day, that flexibility is something that is commonly seen. But in scenarios where you have deadlines or timelines or critical events, I think some of these working hours are not really set in stone. You make yourself available because it's you're fighting against a timeline, and as an organization you come together to make sure that you make that happen. And so in general it's fluid or flexible, but especially during this critical events, I think it's all hands on the deck. And I think with Europe, however, I think we all discussed this earlier as well, that it's a little bit more strict or stringent in terms of the way they function. And in fact, I think I did come across some time back. Also, a lot of European countries actually changing their working style, right? Like making it 4 days a week, fixed number of hours, and so they have some of these executed in a lot of European countries. I haven't seen a lot of organizations in North America do that just yet. And so that's something that also comes across as not just an organization, but actually a regional shift to thinking, and the mindset and the way they approach the working style and the working hours. And so that's interesting to also see how it impacts productivity, because in studies that came out after they made those shifts, I think they did notice that it actually increased the productivity rather than reducing it, when they reduced it to fewer number of days of work hours.
I'm team 4-day work week, putting it out there in the world. But no, I think you're right. And it's like, I think with that sort of mindset in Europe that we've seen generally, there is a little bit more of like a value for personal time. Like it's not time that I'm going to give up. Obviously, if there's a surge, I think that those things do occur. And again, this is a big generalization, but I do feel that that value of personal time has sort of changed in North America. Like growing up here,
Yeah.
everything was over at 5 o'clock. People would come home from work at 5. You'd eat dinner at 6, and like that was the way the world was. And I think we've gotten really flexible, which allows us to have more work life flexibility, but also, people will take calls later and make things happen if they need to, right? So not speaking to the merits of whether that's good or bad here. I think we're just speaking to some things that we're seeing, right? And um, but I just go back to this, like, what do you guys think about? So, hey, I'm, hearing in India, sharing of personal information happens. I've seen it in US startups, right? Where startups will, they'll pay you to use your personal phone, right? So they're essentially paying for your phone service, but you're still giving your personal information. What are some any issues that you see with sharing of personal information in the long run? Have you experienced anything? And then how do you sort of what are some alternatives or what are suggestions for people that are maybe listening to say, uh, you know, I would love to share information. I want to give my customer something. What could that be in place of a personal number? Just curious.
Yeah, I think I probably have what I've experienced and seen here in North America is barring based on your relationships. Of course, there are select cases where you do get really good relationships built with customers, and those are exceptions where you actually exchange numbers and you get a customer to respond to your phone calls or your texts. You of course have to mind or keep the boundaries in place in terms of when you're making those contacts, right? I mean, I can't just pick up a phone on a Sunday and just call, talk about work. Again, depending on the type of relationship, if it's also a personal one that I've ended up cultivating, I can do that and plan to meet with a person as a friend outside of work, but not usually about professional conversations. But barring these exceptions, it's like I said, mostly non-responsive on phone. So your calls or your texts, it's very very limited. It's usually the previous channels we discussed, emails and chats on some of these products, but not really cell phones.
So, if I was going to add on to this particular aspect, for me, if I'm dealing with the customer, the very first thing that I would try to share, apart from personal information, is a email and the other channel like a Skype or a Slack, wherein we can set the boundaries, right, and set the professional working hours as well, as an expectation standpoint. But I could also relate to the point that Rohan mentioned, that depending on the relationship that you have nurtured with your customer, while we talk a lot from a customer success perspective, we do talk about brand champions, customer advocates, and to bring those or to win those, definitely there is a personal touch that is required. That's where sharing the personal information comes in handy. But you can't do it at the beginning of the relationship, because it can go haywire. This should be I would say an achievement in the relationship of a CSM and the customer, that hey, now things are moving further, wherein we can share our personal numbers and kind of take this to the next notch of discussing more from just the day-to-day work life perspective. And that's where you're building the brand advocates. Now, while Paul, you did mention about what are the implications of sharing the personal information. Now, when we touch that topic, that also is very important, because I personally have seen that in my own teams, their information has been shared across with multiple scenarios. Now, I'll give you an example. I was in my experience, like this was like 4 years back, wherein we were dealing with a customer who had a big call center. Now, having big call center, there are calling agents who are like not just 10 or 20, but 50 or 60 of them, right? Now, they were having a problem with the product that they were using. The CSM went overboard and said that, hey, because your implementation was a problem, take my number, reach out to me so that I can take care of it. Now, that poor chap, he shared his number with the team lead of the call center agent, of the call center company. Now, he didn't realize that his number was shared with everyone on the team. Now, even for a slightest problem on the floor, even if their internet is not working, he would start getting calls randomly from different numbers, and he had no way to stop it. Every day there is a new number on which he's getting a call and there is an issue, and that created a lot of problems in the way he was working, and he reached a frustration level, due to which at the end of the day we had to change his number. But there are some scenarios that I've seen wherein the numbers you shared with some primary spock, but it flowed down to multiple members, and they start giving you a call, and you do not even have context of what is to be discussed, and you start receiving calls, and that adds on the frustration level of a customer success manager, wherein we are expected to hear everything from the customers, but because of that, that's where you get a negative impact in your mindset, that am I even doing the right thing by sharing the numbers? So I believe a boundary has to be set when you share it, and a person should be aware when and who should be the people he should expect a call from the customer's organization.
That is actually really a great example of how things can go awry, and thank you for sharing that. And I feel like I have heard or had similar examples, and some of the things that we did implement for my teams, just for everyone's knowledge, where we did actually do voice over IP or other options that
Mhm.
allowed the customer still to have a phone number to call, but it was actually all going into our support tool. It was getting transcribed. If you didn't answer that call, it got screened and we could triage it like a normal support ticket, which I felt was really awesome. And I also believe in encouraging teams to use support, like use our channels, right? Use our chats and our emails, because I know that you want that. Like, I need to pick up the phone, but we're often, without the context that we get in like
Right.
a email, we're often unable to support, right? We're then doing a lot of back and forth of like, what's going on? What's figuring out? I fully agree with you all though. There's gonna be some high level relationships that you really do need to make that exchange, even no matter what your region. And so it's about setting expectations even for your teams, right? Of how much and how often to reach out. Okay, we're nearing our time, and I want to spend a little time on Q&A. So I'm going to jump to kind of shift focus right now, because we obviously have talked a lot about channels and communication and how to support. How do customers engage back? What are you seeing as in the manner of advocacy or feedback sharing from the different regions? And what are some ideas that you might have to appeal to different subsets that might not engage, right? So, and we're talking advocacy or feedback sharing about your company or product or things like that. Sorry, I didn't either one of you guys. Rohan, you want to start?
Yeah, yeah. So I think for the North American customers that I've been closely working with, I've seen them more open to test stuff out, share feedback, and so some of our customers, when we launch new features, or we also launched enhancements, they are more than happy to actually test them out, spend some of their time and give feedback. And yet sometimes it's because of the relationship and because of something that they're doing in return for you, and in some cases it's because that can make their lives easier, right? So if it's a functionality that you launched that can actually cut out some of the time that they're spending on repetitive activities, or some reports that they're generating that they have quick access to, it's sort of a what's in it for me sort of a scenario, right? So they're aiming for giving you feedback because they're going to, at the end of the day, get something that can make their lives easy, make things better for them, and not just make it better for them from the ease of working, but also from showcasing their own position within their organizations as something that someone that is a hero sort of a scenario in that situation. Trying to give insights or intelligence that the organization was lacking earlier. And so I think they're a lot more open to it. I've had a ton of them, even in terms of getting feedback logged down, right? So in form of reviews, in form of testimonials, some even in case of video testimonials, they're more than happy to share their experiences, share their feedback, and get it out there. So they're a lot more open that way.
Right. I couldn't agree more to what Rohan mentioned. One thing that I would like to add on from, if we talk region specific information here, in India, what I have personally seen is that the customer is really happy with the product and service, he would be more than willing to give you a feedback, because at the end of the day, he knows that his time and effort is going to be reciprocated by the ROI he generates by providing feedback and looking at the actionables from your side. Second is, which one also mentioned, is the individualism that is there, where you need to be showcased as a brand champion or the hero internally to your own company as well. And this is very much prominent here as well, wherein when your initial Spock, who is working with you day and out, and trying to get ROI from the project, if he's trying to help you with a suggestion that is going to help you improve the product or even create a new revenue stream uh, from a new feature functionality, what they expect in return is kind of uh, giving them a shout out, or even acknowledging their effort in front of their own organization, because at the end of the day they have also put in their time, effort, which we reciprocate by talking and acknowledging the effort of the person. Now, this also brings me to a very great example, I would say, that I personally experienced with one of our customers. So 1 year back, we were, in the middle of launching a new feature, and we were trying to, we were really striving for hard and concrete feedback from our set of customers, because at the end of the day, if the feedback was going to be really impactful and concrete, we were going to build that feature as a new revenue line item in our whole product offering. Now, when we started this project, the very first month, we were not able to get some good feedback. Why? Because they were like, it's a new beta product, it's a new beta feature. What's in it for me? Because when the CSMs were going on call, they were just talking about the feature, the functionality. What is this feature? How we have built it and all. But the core thing that was being missed was an alignment of that feature with their own goals, with their all. How would that help them in their long-term achievement of ROI, or could that speedify the returns of investment if they really have this feature live in their present product list that we have provided to them. And that kind of, firstly, that kind of change the nuance of understanding what is in it for them if they take this more seriously. Second thing, India being a country, where sports and cricket is loved a lot, we just came out, wherein we tried to gamify this entire approach. We said that, hey, you know what, let's create a Premier League out of it. So, just like English Premier League and Indian Premier League, we create, a product feature league, PFL, wherein we segregated around 25 customers coming from enterprise, mid-market, and tech touch, and segregated the spokes. And with each spoke, we created a specific team. Now, the end goal of this particular project definitely was to increase adoption and ensure that we have the feedback to, build that product as a new revenue line. Now, when we went with this particular thing to the customer, our pitch to them was not like, we need your help. We just went to them that, hey, you are the lucky one who has been selected to be a part of this league. And if you or your team wins, you're going to get a good shout out from our side. A, definitely you will be getting some vouchers. But B is that, your organization would be amongst the social media promotions that we're going to do at the end of the day from our side, which will also help them get the brand advocacy for their own organizations. So here, if you look at it, we have the communication item pretty much straight lined up for the customer, wherein they could sense that there was something in it for them in terms of ROI, and then definitely glorifying their efforts and also glorifying their organization. And that was a big success because the customers believed in it. They actively took part in it. We received so much feedback. Our goal at the start of the project was just to get around 30-40% adoption on that new feature. We ended up getting 75% plus adoption because they were so much happy with it. And when we actually closed it down, the customers started to write back to us that, hey, when is the next league gonna come up? So the point is that the innovative approach of gamification, if you have that in mind, that can actually play with or ignite the actual sentiment of the customer, wherein they can acknowledge that they have something to win and they have something to learn from it, they would definitely be a part of that initiative. And you, at the end of the day, both, I would say, the customer and the CSM's organization would be a win-win parties here because no one is at the losing end. And that's how you also, win brand advocates by using such kind of examples and using such kind of ideas.
Yeah, definitely. Love those ideas. Thank you both for sharing. I think honestly the message here is it's about helping to elevate the customer company and the individual who's our champion, right? Because not only are they under pressure to make sure the project is successful, but they often can use some support in celebrating. So why not provide that as an opportunity? And I think we talked about this, example I shared, like we did like a big prize one time. It wasn't like a dollar money prize, but um it was equivalent to that because we did like, hey, enter this contest, give us some of your feedback, and then you can win a spot into a conference, right? Like something that is, something that is in the realm of like learning and development, but we were still able to do some kind of a benefit to our champions. Okay, I love that. Okay, so just real quick, since we're almost at time and I want to save a little bit of time for questions, for everyone, if you do have questions, drop them in the chat. But give me your 30-second hot take on global trends in customer success, which could provide insider action on how we can better support customers. Okay, we'll go again with Rohan first.
Yeah. I think summing up everything that we've been speaking of, I think keeping the generalizations aside, I think like everything else in customer success, this is a tailored approach that we'll have to take. So there is a high level structure or a guideline on what is the best practice for the organization based on the industry, geography, business, and so on. But then it will still have to be tailored to varying use cases, varying functions and individuals that you deal with, because while we have been generalizing a lot, all of us have experienced that each organization and each individual have a preferred way of doing things, rather while it's a channel or in person, or on chat or on phone or whatever, they have a preference for it in their own way. And so keeping that in mind, I think as I think the overall CS is moving as well towards it, we also will have to make sure that the support to the global customers is also tailored to make sure that they all feel that they're getting what they need to out of the engagement.
Right. If I talk about this, if I was going to sum it up, I would be like, be patient and understand your customer at the end of the day. Because what really matters is definitely, when we are trying to understand what the customer requires in terms of work, we also need to understand what do they require in terms of communication, what is their requirement in terms of how we talk to them, what is the preferred way of talking to them, what kind of words should be taken care of while you're talking to them. Because as I mentioned, every culture, maybe diversity, if we're talking about, has certain aspects that we need to cater to. So if you are talking to a person of a completely different or a diverse background, I would say do a bit of research, understand what is in it that they really prefer, what is in it that is something that could be offending, right? Because this is the very root of building up a very strong relationship with your customer. Because when you have attained that comfort level with that customer, trust me, understanding the goals with that customer would be a cakewalk. So be patient, understand your customer well, and then take things forward in a better way.
Yes, at the end of the day, research is king, right? Okay, we have a question in the chat, and so I'm going to do my best to summarize. I think you guys can also read through in the discussion area. So we're hearing from Mohammed, and says he had 26 accounts. They've shot up to 74 after some layoffs, and he's being asked to validate churn from March to July, and also working through how to best segment these accounts. And I think focus on maybe some global accounts seems to be in play with time zones and things. Any suggestions here as we're thinking about sort of a segmentation technique that could be valuable for Mohammed?
So my take on this one to Mohammed would be that firstly, you need to understand the 74 accounts that you have, how many are enterprise, mid-market, and tech touch. B is, where are they in their customer journey with you guys? Instead, like, how many are in the onboarding stage, how many are on the adoption phase? Like, the point is, how much time have they actually spent in the company and understanding the product? The third would be, understanding the spokes and how much are they aware of using the product. Because if they are aware of using the product in a much better way, then your approach would be more towards discussing on building roadmaps instead of just training them on the product. So these are 3-4 things that we would definitely want to do to understand the accounts. And definitely document those things, because while you're trying to segment, documentation and building of account plan for critical accounts would be really, really important in order to ensure that you are when you are planning your bandwidth, you're able to allocate time to accounts that really need help, or accounts that really need your priority time. So in 74, all the 74 might not be the one at priority, but these segmentation aspects might help you prioritize accounts and accordingly give time to the accounts that really need help, and accordingly prosper towards the remaining ones.
Yeah, adding on, so in addition to the type of subscription or size of the accounts, you might want to, if there is any form of health scoring in place, which gives you a slight indication of which are probably doing well versus those that aren't. That can help you also prioritize on focusing on accounts that really aren't doing well. Also, maybe breaking it down by the renewal period. So probably focus on the ones that are coming up first and get to the ones that are coming up later, maybe subsequently, because you have a fair number of accounts to go through. Also, once you have been able to segment it, based on what information you have available, previous notes from the other CSMs to, any, information on what value has been showcased, what outcomes your accounts were looking to achieve, and what has been, so far achieved, and what the plan is going ahead. If you're able to put forth a sort of a plan or a information deck for each of these accounts, not just for your internal churn prediction, but might be a good thing for you to also build a rapport with all of these new accounts that you're starting to engage with, to help them showcase your ability, your understanding of their outcomes, and build confidence with them, since you're a new point of contact for them. So I think it's a combination of a few of these things that can help you plan for and give some sort of forecasting in terms of which accounts are likely to renew and which accounts are at risk.
All right. Well, thank you both for that answer. And we are out of time today, but this was a really great, engaging discussion, and hopefully our listeners learn something and will learn something. Again, this recording will be available on our Melting Spot platform for everybody that is a community member, but we'll also be posting to YouTube for those that are not. And for those members, we hope you'll join us for our next Chai Chat, which is on March 5th. And thanks, Raman and Rohan, for being our first webinar panelists. It was really awesome to work with you both on this. And that's about it for today. So hope everyone has a great rest of their day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.